Boom.
Boom. Welcome to Office Hours, everybody. It's on behalf of John and our special guest star, Adam. Welcome all. And if you're watching this in a recording, please remember to subscribe and like and to register for the next one. We've got a new invite coming out later this week for the rest of the year. So today was the last one that you could register for in this first quarter of bookings, which means that next Friday, we might get a little crazy, but it's April 1st. So April Fool's is going to be next Friday.
That was my dad's favorite holiday of all the holidays.
Amazing. So welcome and all to the recording and to the live event. We've got folks and attendees jumping on. For our attendees, remember to please log in and chat us your questions, or you can use the Q&A tool. And this is intended to be a live event that's for your benefit. So as we get through probably the first 25-30 minutes, we're just going to have a chat. If you'd like to speak right away, go ahead and use the raise hands tool in Zoom. But otherwise, I'm going to be turning on everybody's ability to talk at around 1:30 Central Time, which is what we're on. So in about 30 minutes, everybody's going to get a chance to chat. And if you would like to join as a visible participant, you can let us know and we turn on your audio. This is Office Hours on behalf of Voyager and BusyWeb. And so I don't want to hem and haw too much, but
I'm the hemming and hawing in this gang of groups.
John,
I do the hemming and hawing around here.
Yes.
You do some hemming and hawing too. So yeah. I hem and I haw. Yeah, we're here to help. So this is a lifeline. This is a lifeline of small business in America calling from, in fact, Dave, I like your little globe spinning over your shoulder there. With the mirror effect, I don't know if that's your right or left shoulder, but that's what we intend to be. And we have been for a while as the lifeline of ideas and dialogue and insight, and hopefully some entertainment as well, but a lifeline for people who are fractional and those that we serve, and the small business, which someone asked me, what is small business today? And I said, just think about it as any business that's not on the Fortune 2000 and up. Mm-hmm. That's a good way to think about it. And don't think about them as those who serve those businesses. They're awesome unto themselves. So I know the government has a different definition of small business in America, but I think that's a good way to think about it. So, well.
Amen. Well, hey, I want to get to everybody and introduce Adam with Intune Team Building. I've actually used Adam's services, and if we get a chance, actually, why don't I do this real quick? I'm just going to screen share for 1 second because I think it's hilarious and bring this up. But my entire team used Adam's service, Intune Team Building, last year, like at the end of last year. So here's me
look at that
with the rest of our leadership team, and we jammed out. I think we did Seven Nation Army by White Stripes, and another one, Bites the Dust by Queen. And it took me about a month and a half until the feeling came back in my main finger for playing guitar, because I played the lead guitar all day long. It was just absolutely amazing. So without further ado, Adam, tell us who you are, what you do, and what we can learn from you today.
All right, that's a pretty daunting way to start. I'm going to try to one-up you, Dave. I'm not sure I can do it, but if we're ready, let's rock.
Let's rock and roll. Oh, look at that. Where's the end of it?
I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company.
Love it.
That was nice. Hey,
thank you.
Has anybody ever told you, put your sunglasses back on for a second. Dude, does that not look like the guy from The Matrix?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You totally look like the guy from The Matrix.
Thank you, John. You know what? You just changed my weekend plans.
Dude, you need a big, long, black trench coat. My God. Unfortunately, I think he's the bad guy in one of the Matrixes, isn't he?
Agent Smith. Yes.
Agent Smith.
You're right. But you know what? That's the best comparison I've heard in a while. Thank you. I'm going to go with it. Good guy, bad guy. I'm okay with it.
Oh my gosh. Tell us. So apart from the Matrix, I've gotten to know your business a little bit, but God, you got to lay it on us. You do your thing differently, and music's involved, which is brilliant. Let's go. Let's hear it.
All right, thank you. We've made it through the toughest part of today's presentation, and that's listening to my music or my mangled music. But I'll ask you to please take inventory. Are you smiling? Did that make you smile? Even my god-awful
Absolutely.
music. And that's kind of the crux of what we're going to be talking about today. Music makes us feel good. Music makes us smile, even for those of us without any musical talent and without any rhythm. Now, by way of self-introduction, I'm going to back way up. It's clear I don't have any musical talent, and I've been licking my wounds since the 4th grade when I found that out. I tried out for the school musical, and I thought I was a shoo-in. I memorized all the words for the tryout songs, and I thought I was there. And then the next day, this dear, sweet, god-awful music teacher pulled me aside. She said, "Adam, you didn't get the part. You have no rhythm."
Oh,
So I've been carrying that around for
in 4th grade? In 4th grade?
Yes. Can you believe that, John?
I have to have a conversation with the Kansas City School Board. That is not the right thing to say a 4th grader.
No, I was in Minneapolis. That's where I grew up. And I agree. It's just not right. So I've carried that baggage around for a long time. And then after a while, it was medically proven. And I frankly documented it. I wrote a book. Honest to God, I have no rhythm.
Really?
So it's documented right here. I apologize for the clumsy vision.
That's okay. Atrial frustration.
Yes. So,
So it's biological.
It is. So there's my excuse. I thank you all for suffering through my attempt at music. But I have a legitimate excuse.
A medical one.
Yep. So moving on from that, why we're talking today about team building and the Great Resignation and using music as a pinion for a team building workshop is because I spent 2 decades in the entertainment business. My father and I owned a minor league baseball team. And we actually we bought the team in Minnesota, we moved it to Kansas City, and we're here for 2 decades in total. We sold the team at the end of 2019, and so I'm thankful I'm not out trying to sell sponsorships and baseball tickets through the pandemic. So
yeah, that would suck.
It would suck. It was a wonderful experience for my dad and me together. But after 20 years, I don't seem to be as young as I used to be, and strangely, neither is my dad. So I'm happy to enter a new chapter in my life at the conclusion of that experience. Yep, I sat down and wrote this book about my heart saga. And then I spent some more time trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I could have, I think, hung out my shingle as a consultant and a consultant in the sports business. I had a pretty significant experience there. But I kind of didn't want to do that for a number of reasons. And largely, I was weary of take the sports business. You have every variable of small business, and then you build in an opponent, and you build in weather, and you build in worrying about cold hot dogs and hot beer. That's enough. I kind of wanted to simplify or narrow down my daily battles.
Lots of moving parts. Moving parts.
But at the cusp of the pandemic, I think I was impressed by the potential and the need for team building exercises and the importance of team building. And then as I tried to determine a concept, because I don't think sports are the best forum or the best lesson for team building, which I think is ironic because people automatically defer to that. But I don't think that's a good fit for a number of reasons. Sports are competitive. Sports are automatically exclusionary. When you think about kind of the current crop of team building experiences now, you can have a company sponsored softball team, or that's been around forever. You can have a company, you can do an escape room, you can have a scavenger hunt, or you can take your work team to an axe throwing event.
Right. Try not to hit each other.
Yeah. And all of those have their place, and they're fine and good in their element. But 2 things I want to point out. You don't learn anything. Yep, you're out of the office, you're doing something different, but frankly, the boss is still the boss, the loudmouth is still the loudmouth, and the quiet folks are still the quiet folks. Nothing is learned, nothing is engaged, nothing is challenged.
Yeah.
And speaking of exclusionary, not everyone wants to play softball. Not everyone wants
Right.
to go to a happy hour.
Right.
Not everyone wants to be within 1,000 yards of their coworkers throwing axes around.
Yeah. Totally. Or bowling, or, it's just, and I suffered through that. I fought trying to create those scenarios back when I owned a business. And for the most part, I think I failed.
Yeah, isn't that ironic? Most of us
Yeah.
think of physical activities
Yeah.
for team building because
Mhm.
sports are the natural analogy. That for all of those reasons and a whole host more that I'll get to probably, sports is not the best fit. So we're going to talk about music today. Oops,
Nice.
skip the stuff. Hitting upon that I wanted to do something in team building, I sat down and I wrote a book. So here's another one, and this is called Team Building Easier in Business Than in Baseball.
Is that on Amazon? Can I put a link out there? Okay.
Yep.
We'll get it up there.
So the title is intentional because, and it's not a scholarly tome, it's a lighthearted look at general business lessons that can be exemplified through unique and I think funny stories that can only come from the world of minor league baseball. So that's the story.
Do you reach into a lot of minor league baseball in your book?
I do. Yep.
Yeah.
Each chapter, frankly, is built around a funny scenario that happened to me over the course of 20 years.
I can't not think of Bull Durham. And is that the one with Susan Sarandon and Kevin Costner?
Yeah.
Yes. And my analysis, Bull Durham, one, it's not far from the truth. And two, our first manager was, and now we're going off on a tangent, but I'm happy for that because I love this forum.
It's a radio show. It's a radio show. We're supposed to go off on tangents.
You guys are such good conversationalists. So we had a manager, a really good guy, and actually I dedicated this book to him. He was my baseball mentor, a wonderful guy who was the original manager for the Durham Bulls.
Really?
Yep. And if you look closely, when there's a scene in the manager's office, there's a little picture of him hanging on the wall. And my friend, and we lost him, I think 4 years ago, but my friend is in baseball's record books for being the guy with the longest name to have ever played the game. He was an only child, Alan Mitchell Edward George Patrick Henry Gallagher. And it's
how much of that got on his jersey? How much of that got on his jersey?
Well, here, I'm going to answer that a little bit for more than you expect. What was on his jersey was dirt, always dirt, and tobacco stains and coffee. He had one of the greatest nicknames in baseball. His nickname was Dirty Al Gallagher.
Oh,
Prince
nice.
among men, one of the greatest I've ever met, and I dedicated the book to him.
And that is an amazing nickname.
Yeah, well, he that's how he played, but in a good way.
Yeah, like Pigpen Dirty.
Pigpen Dirty. He left it all out on the field, and now he adopted that as his persona.
Yeah,
and he carried that through the rest of his life, not just on the field, but in daily function.
Yeah, as you talk about leadership and all of that, and those stories you were saying. Let's go throw an axe together. Let's go play softball together. We did kickball once. But we've all done it, right? And golly, I think there's way more horror stories than success stories in those environments. It's just, and for anybody who's listening, submit, like, what did you have to go through in the idea of team building that was just, and I got to tell you, I feel the best ones that we did when I ran a company, our office was by a river. We went and cleaned up the river. Best things for us to do together.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But yeah, those, oh my God, you should write a whole book on, well, maybe you already have, but on all of those, team building things that are just painful, and yet they happen.
I have not written that book, but that may be coming in a couple of years. Frankly, once we prove this concept, and this concept is in its infancy.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Now, let me talk a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about why sports are not a good team building mechanism or forum. And John, you hit upon a great concept. We think about nightmares and horror stories from those team building activities. And I think that's what people mistakenly take as a team building unifier.
Mhm.
You gather around the day after and you lick each other's, or not each other's, you lick your wounds and you compare horror stories and you
Yeah.
say, oh my God, I can't believe how awful that was. And oh, but we survived it. Now let's go on about our business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our concept uses music and music education as its pinion. Now, I'll admit that's pretty daunting. Obviously, as you all just heard 10 minutes ago, not everyone has musical talent, but frankly, that's the point. Okay.
Yeah.
So and I will now just segue into, I'm going to describe really the opening vignette from our workshops, because I think that sums it up pretty good. And then I think that's really a pretty nice transition into maybe some statistics if people are still awake, or a better conversation. But the concept is music, while daunting at first, everyone has a warm spot for music.
Mhm.
Think about what you do at the end of a long day or at the end of a long week. You get in your car, you turn the radio to the news and hear about horror story after horror story after horror story. Nope, you turn it to your favorite 70s or 80s or 90s or 2000s radio station and you rock out and you feel
80s.
better.
80s. You want to feel good? You go right to the outfield. You go right to the outfield. Spend a little time with Pink Floyd if it's been a down day, but go right to the outfield. You'll pick yourself right up.
Wow, well played, Mr. Arms. Nice pitch. And no matter what your decade, I think we all have that. You think back to your favorite memories. You think back to your favorite songs in high school. You think back to your college dances. You think of your wedding. You can pick out a whole bunch of songs from that experience, and they all make us feel good. So the concept is we challenge you a little bit, even beyond the initial apprehension for those of us with medically no rhythm. So what we do is we contract with 2 music schools in the Twin Cities, and we rely upon them for their facility, for their instruments, and more importantly, for their professional music instruction.
Okay.
So what we do through the course of a half day or a full day workshop, we assemble in the lobby, and once all the participants are there, and Dave can attest to this, and I will touch more on Dave's company's experience in a moment.
Yeah, please.
So once everyone's there, we hear the musicians, the professionals in the back playing and warming up. And we tell the participants, okay, the band's warming up, let's head in the back. So we go into the performance area and the professional musicians are on stage and they're warming up and they pay close attention as we assemble in the room. And once everyone is paying close attention, one band member kind of gets a look in his eye and he starts to do his own thing. And the band members, all of them, are paying, again, close attention. They watch the participants. And 1 or 2 of the band members kind of roll their eyes and say, oh no, that's Bob doing his thing again. And they're playing this up to the audience. And then 1 or 2 of the band members also just kind of throw up their arms and say, oh, for crying out loud, Bob's doing it. You know what? I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to give up. Put down my drumsticks and we're going to quit. And once that's duly registered from the participants, we stop the performance and we turn to those participants and we ask, what just happened? And people are pretty quick to identify it. They're also pretty self-effacing, meaning, you know, that guy just went off and did his own thing. He looks like a jerk. They don't say that. They say, well, there was a miscommunication. Somebody was playing the wrong song. I don't know how they got off beat, how they got off tune. And then we ask, has that ever happened in your office? What's happened in your workplace? How'd you overcome it? How'd you work through it? Were you able to overcome it? And with that, people say, yep, we had that just last month. And you know what? It was my fault. So instead of pointing at Bob, the guitar player, as he's a jerk, and that's what he always does, they say, yep, you know what? We were going too fast, or I was distracted. I didn't give clear instruction or communicate clearly to our team. And the whole thing blew up. And we asked, well, how'd you get through that? How'd you overcome that? Well, we had to pull everyone together. We had to simplify. We had to look at tasks. We had to prioritize. We had to share some responsibility. And you know what? We worked through it. And that really is the simple parable for how our workshop goes. So we start that way with the full group, and then we divide up. And you get 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 music instruction for 30 or 40 minutes. You start practicing a song. You bring the group together and they give it a shot. And invariably, it's dreadful.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
kind of supposed to be. You don't learn
Right.
this in
Right.
20 minutes. But we use that again as another conversation point.
And a learning moment.
Well, and
Absolutely.
it's by design, because if you know how to play guitar, you're not allowed.
Yep.
Right?
Oh,
You're not
good
allowed to
idea.
play the rights or what you're comfortable with.
That's a good clarification. Thanks for that reminder, Dave. We want
I'm fascinated by the structure, Adam, and for so many reasons. But one is, well, the first is it is so humbling, right? If you have to walk into a room and pick up a guitar, there's just sort of it's just like if you've never played, right? It's like you've been given this instrument that you don't. I mean, it's just humbling because you don't know, and you're vulnerable. Which, of course, if you're going to learn anything, you have to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You just won't learn. And there's just, and I was thinking about this before the show today, of all the leadership things, right? Of all the leadership efforts and stuff, I'm like, this is so unique because, I mean, just from a different thing, like how do you need to fly to Vegas and get everybody together and drink like crazy the night before and bring in a $50,000 speaker? And I'm not mocking that business model, but it's sort of been there, done that, right? That's been done gazillions of times. But sticking a guitar in Dave Meyer's hands with his team, with the intent to let's see how well we can play together, it's genius. It's absolute genius. And I'm curious, Dave, what was what happened when you did it, when Adam took you through?
Yeah, I mean, the fun part is, well, the entire day was tremendous fun, but especially for the folks that were a little nervous about the whole thing, they left charged. I mean, they were excited, they were pumped, they had a ton of fun. We had some, I just decided to do the guitar the entire time because I've never played any dang instrument. I was always a singer. And so I intentionally didn't do any singing that day and just, kind of hit the guitars. But, there's drums, there's bass, there's and guitar, of course, on what we did. But the ability to go out to start doing something and to work with a team that actually helps you break it down. So it's not like we were learning music theory. We're like, put your hands here, here, and here, and strike these 4 keys, do it 12 times, and then switch to this handhold, and then strike these 3 keys or these 3 strings and go here, 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 here. And then they started putting it into theory and doing it backwards. But like my wife, who is the chief operating officer of BusyWeb, she had never played drums before, and she just she wants to get a drum kit and put it in the basement.
Don't blame. That's awesome.
We'll see. Depends on if our neighbors are annoying at some point in the near future, and then we'll grab a kit and put it right in the garage. But it's so dang much fun because you get a chance to just thrash and to have fun. And Adam claims that we did pretty well. I think that might be something that they tell everybody, but we absolutely had a ball because all of a sudden we were literally making music, and it took shockingly little time to do so. I think we went out and we practiced for like an hour and a half, and we came back and it almost sounded like Seven Nation Army.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Adam, how do you, so, and I love it, right? Everybody's equally vulnerable. Everybody, it's like if you do softball, right? You got somebody who's maybe reliving some jock years and so not everybody's equal on the softball field as a softball player, but when you start them like this, everybody's equal with an instrument in their hand. Adam, how do you, clearly you're not making it up as you go. You have a structure. How do you put people in this vulnerable place and, with the general idea, we're going to use music to get together. What happens after that? How do you structure it?
You guys have hit upon a lot of really important concepts, and I'm not going to remember them all, but I'll try to hit a few. First, Dave and Jen and their team were terrific. And I'm going to use this to answer your last question, John. When I hit upon the concept and started studying it and trying to analyze if it could work, and then I jumped in and wanted to make it work. I wrote a curriculum that I way over engineered.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, top to bottom, soup to nuts,
Yeah.
full of if-then scenarios
Oh.
and lessons and vocabulary and
Sure.
buzzwords. And a lot of that is still there and is valuable or could be valuable. But I didn't describe, and I think this is a good time to, our workshop is a facilitated conversation.
Okay.
So whether it's me or we have a couple other excellent and better facilitators, frankly, we guide the conversation through those full group, those plenary sessions. And we do a pre-event interview trying to understand the customer's pain points and their desires. So is it communication? Is it workflow? Is it simplification? Is it trust? So we try to remember those watchwords and we build in a few lessons, but sometimes, frankly, we don't need to or we can't. And in the BusyWeb team, as an example, it was pretty apparent already that they functioned as a highly communicative and highly effective team. And after that first couple hours, when they began mastering that first song, our facilitator and I looked at each other and we said, gee whiz, I'm not sure they need any more lessons from us. So we turned to them, hey, you guys look like you're having fun. You're clearly having some proficiency here and some growth. Should we stick with some team building concepts or do you just want to rock out? And that was their vote.
Beautiful.
And we voted the rest of the day. And where I'm going with that is our lesson plan is intentionally fluid.
Okay. Interesting.
And
that's a relief.
Well, thank you. That's good to hear. And that fits, frankly, between two of the scenarios we talked about earlier. The regular softball team axe throwing event or the high price 6-figure consultant where you go to Vegas and drink yourself silly and then listen to this consultant and write a gigantic check.
Right.
Yeah.
You take different elements away. We hope to reinforce simplification, prioritization, communication, and this concept, this camaraderie through the day builds empathy and builds trust. And it's a uniquely singular, I guess that's redundant, it's a singular experience. And so I'm going a long way to say that over-engineered curriculum is one thing, but the experience is remarkable. And finally, the BusyWeb team was frankly full of apprehension when they came in that day.
Is that right?
Apprehension, discomfort. Some of that discomfort is intentional. Meaning we don't lay out the ground rules or the agenda for the day when we walk them back and then kind of put them on the spot when the band blows up.
Yeah.
So that's intentional. But as they, you walk in and you try to figure out how to hold a guitar, let alone how to play it. And then as the day moves on, I mean, the smiles grow. It's unbelievable how they blossom. So that, I think, is the biggest benefit, aside from the lessons, if you will, that they might take away. Hey, we got off track on that one thing and we had to circle back and we had to communicate one-on-one, and then we got in tune or in sync with the rest of the band.
Yeah.
That has some function.
You hit on a magic word that I think is really underserved in leadership training and just in business in general, and that is empathy. Empathy is in short supply often, especially depending on the structure of the business. The closer you are to a deadline, the more angry a customer is, the more broken the supply chain is. Like, empathy is it's just, on many days it doesn't exist. And on good days, it's kind of underneath the hum of the business. And yet, if you were to think about what pulls teams together and pulls things forward, empathy is a key ingredient. Key ingredient.
I'm glad you picked up on that. And I'm going to pick up on a term I think you mentioned last week, John. Our economy is maybe at a turning point, or not quite a tipping point, but I think the phrase you used was, we're at a moment of opportunity.
Totally. Absolutely.
And I think a lot of this was spurred by COVID. And toward that, a couple of statistics, I won't bore you with that, but since the advent of COVID, employee disengagement took its deepest dive ever.
Forever. Yeah. Huge.
62% of workers report losing 1 hour of productivity a day due to COVID-related stress. 32% lose 2 hours a day. That's unbelievable.
Just
That's,
COVID stress. COVID stress, an hour or two is just gone, vaporized.
Right.
Yep, into thin air. You're right. And so I'm going to back way up. The genesis for this concept was the return or the reemergence, or I guess the hopeful reemergence after that first 12 or 18 months of lockdown. Meaning people had forgotten how to communicate, how to empathize. And frankly, we've lost a great deal of organic creativity just not being in the same room or walking down the same hallway. And there was a terrific article maybe a year and a half ago called The Disappearance of the Water Cooler. And that sums up how all of those intangibles that we lose when we're not in the same place. So long way to go. Our concept was born of that, thinking that people needed to remember how to re-engage with each other as human beings. From that, the concept has evolved, I think, to as one small remedy toward the bigger concern right now, which is retention and engagement.
Sure. Yeah.
And to sum it up, our workshop is not going to cure everything. It doesn't cure all ills, but we believe 4 or 6 hours with us can be a pretty good insurance policy against that disengaged employee.
Oh my God. Absolutely. You kidding me? Get together, do something new. So, I mean, I would, if I was still running a business, a big business, and I would, I mean, as a leader, I didn't like pulling some of these things together. I struggled, like, how am I going to get, when we were 5 people, when we were 22 people, how am I going to get all this in sync? It's hard. It's very hard. And to have to do that today, honestly, Adam, I mean, I wouldn't go to, I would just by virtue of doing something like your program, like, you know what? No idea how that's going to turn out, but we're going to get together with a bunch of instruments. And quite honestly, that takes pressure off me as the leader, right? That means I don't have to go orchestrate and sort of, because as a leader, you always feel like you're the host.
You're right. That feels like additional stress too, doesn't it?
It's just harder. Yeah. You got to be on. You're always on. If someone's not digging it, you got to go console them.
And you're watching the room. Oh boy, he's having fun. Oh no, she's uncomfortable. What have I done? How do I make it tomorrow?
Absolutely exhausting.
Important to embrace the suck and to have fun. I'm going to turn everybody's mics on so that we can add to the chat. So everybody go ahead and get ready. I'm going to allow everyone to talk. So if you would like to be added as a full-on panelist so that we can see you as well, by all means, just let me know. You can either raise your hand or just ask live, because everybody can talk now. And let's have the conversation. What have you had for great and maybe not so great team building exercises, and what really works to engage?
See ya.
Hi, Dave. This is me in Pittsburgh.
Hey,
Pittsburgh.
Yes.
We love Pittsburgh.
That's great. There's a lot to enjoy. I'm just wondering if you guys have ever seen the movie, and everybody else who's on, The Commitments. It's an Irish movie about a band. To me, that is the best video on team building. The menagerie of characters and the knowing and the ups and the downs and the fight. I would absolutely encourage it. I ended up seeing that movie in the theater, and I did live and work in Dublin a few years before that, so I loved it anyway. But about 2 years after seeing it, I ended up going to work for a company, and I slowly began to realize, like, I was living the commitments. Like, we weren't singing. Okay.
Wow. That's
I was the girl with hair. If you can see me, like the guy. And the guy who knew what personalities he needed, the old guy who yelled at us, the guy who ended up with the piano stealing, and he goes on to get his piano. He goes on to become a doctor, and the two guys were like, kind of like nice, not, nothing, there were the two guys who, and the guy who insisted on playing jazz, and the guy who was the killer lead singer.
Right.
Wow. Art imitates life.
I'm sorry. Oh, it really was. Well, it was like I had seen it like 2 or 3 years earlier, and then I just started watching these people, and the characters.
Wow,
And
it's been years since I've seen that movie, and you're absolutely right. I mean, art imitates life. A million lessons in there. I didn't even think about that. And
I don't know that I'd remember it if I didn't start living it.
Right.
well, how did you live it? How did you live it? What happened about, when you said you lived that? Tell us more about that.
Well, it came together really great, and then it fell apart, just like it does in the movie. Oh, I gave away I'm sorry.
And I think there's the statute of limitations on it's 17 years. That movie's like 20 years old, and
More
just
than
like
that, it's 91 or 92. It's
yeah,
30.
yeah, you're safe. You can give it away. There's no spoiler alert after they've had their chance.
I know, but still, it's like, right, it's okay. But the key element there was the guy who was my boss in real life, not Jimmy Rabbit, understood the characters that he needed. And he didn't even know he needed the old guy. But the old guy, if you just watch the little things that the old guy said, our old guy had put, like most of my careers in Washington, D.C., but also in Pittsburgh, had put his company he sold to Ernest and Winnie, and they had put think about this, brace yourself, the first computers in at NSA.
Super America?
Before, I'm sorry?
The first computers where?
NSA, National Security Administration.
Oh,
like the
got it.
spies, he was a pretty smart guy, is my point. Undergrad and grad MIT. And he knew how to throw an event. Like, he'd love your music thing. And he would love, he threw we did a ski trip, and his thoughts about that were not anything that you would expect. It was, okay, I'll tell you, because I was a skier, and they said, Charlie had a ski trip for his company, so work on Charlie, because Charlie likes you, so let's do a ski trip. There were enough skiers. And so Charlie's like, let's do this, so send out an email, see who's going to, and he said, put together a little budget so I can put it before the board. But then he later explained to me, he had a company, and we were in the same situation where we were going to hire a lot of, for out of college engineer guys, like 21, 22-year-olds who, were a step away, just walking out of the frat party kind of, and, that's what he had with his company. And he said, see, I'm not paying for this out of team building. I'm paying for this out of recruiting. If I say to a 21-year-old that I have a ski trip, then I'm a cool company.
Yeah.
And they'll want to work for me, and I can pay him at least $1,000 less. That's how this ski trip is going to pay for itself. Now, if you've seen the movie, this is the guy who played with Wilson Pickett, been there, done that guy. You know what I'm saying? That was like the role that the more I got to know Charlie, I'm like, oh my God, it's like the old guy in The Commitments. Oh my gosh, that's Jimmy Rabbit. Oh my gosh, Deco is the guy who's making this company way better than they even thought, so anyway, but that's a great example. He said, oh, no, this isn't a team building activity. This is recruiting. We're going to get better guys out of college. I'm sorry?
What a great reminder that it's a recruiting amenity, and
right.
And also,
yes, it'll make it sound cool. Oh, yeah. But to me, like, you could play that movie while everybody eats pizza and then hand them the instruments. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
You had me at pizza.
Right.
Right. You had me at Bull Durham. I saw it earlier this week.
Did you?
It's on I watched it this week. I watch it it's on all the time. If you want to watch it, want to multitask, yeah, it's on all the time.
Sia, are you now, or have you been in leadership roles? And is some of this ringing true in terms of engaging people and all of that?
I'm an independent consultant. I left that firm to work independently, and
Good
so a lot of times I'm just leading my client's team. But never, I never really wanted to have, I liked being independent. I ran the numbers and said, do I really want to have 20 employees?
Right.
What will that mean to my life? And I just always kind of taken on new different projects. So.
Well, it's an interesting, and I'm putting the link to the commitments in the chat.
Well, actually, there's a YouTube that has French subtitles, so you don't even have to like pay for it or anything.
It's an interesting point though, Sia, in that because this is emerging, Adam and Dave, is for the independent world, for the fractionals like me and those like it, is we're being leaned on more and more to sort of lead from the sideways direction. Is not all leadership is, I mean, historically, right? Like the stakeholders and the owners and the higher ups, right? The higher ups, they make the leadership decisions and that sort of thing. But now that so much of business growth is relying on fractionals, and quite honestly, we've got the gray hair. We're good at leading, but we're not leading from on top. We're leading from the side, and it's different. And I think it's creating, in some ways, I think it's creating a little bit of a void in leadership. Is leaders that are trying to grow don't have time to do it all, and leaders from the side, people like me and other independent pros, we're still kind of learning how to lead sideways. It's an interesting dynamic, but one that we'll clearly have to get used to as more and more of the business world adopts fractional people and sort of non-traditional higher ups, if you want to call them that.
For sure. Well, Nigel's on as a panelist too. And if anyone else would like to join us on video, just raise your hand and I will promote you as a panelist. You'll bump out, but then you'll bump right back in as a panelist. And then we can see you on video as well. So, hey, Nigel. Hey, Sia, I'll promote you as well.
Thanks for bringing me in. It's quite interesting because, and Adam, excellent idea. The concept is brilliant because one of the things it does, it puts everyone on the back foot, including senior management and everybody else. I just love the concept.
Especially senior management, because senior management needs to be okay with sucking at something.
Yeah, I just want to relate a little story about the one time I went on a team building course, which the chairman of the company, I'd only just joined it, and the chairman thought it would be a wonderful idea. He was a Commodore in the Royal Naval Reserve, and the Navy and the Army had decided to run this business team building course called WASP Tail Exercise. And I was sent off from for a week, I think it's 3 or 4 days, to a military base to do lots of army activities and such like. And they sent me on my own, which was really good for team building in the company. But they ended up, I know, it's the whole concept. It was cheap. Yeah. So they thought, all right, we'll send him on a team building course of one. And,
that's just inherently just seems weird.
Did you feel much better about
but that's the way they were. I didn't mind because I thoroughly enjoyed myself because I had to do I got to fire a couple of quite big military guns and
very aggressive. But that's aggressive.
Very aggressive. It was great fun. But one of the activities that you had to do was prepare an evening meal, and none of the guys who they were all from urban areas, and they weren't used to the countryside, and part of the meal preparation was 2 rabbits. And none of them knew how to prepare a rabbit for cooking except me. So they were pleased I was in their team. Anyway, it's a little aside, but it also shows that sometimes within the team that you have in a company, there are skills that you're not aware of. And that's the one thing I like about team building courses. If you get the team from the company, that they can really bring things together. But as you said, going off on a skiing weekend, as long as everyone can ski, it's fine. But it can, in those situations where you might have senior management who are all good skiers, but somebody who isn't quite, is new into the business and they're growing with the business, they may not have that skill set. And so they're demoted immediately into the learner slopes, whilst the senior management and middle management are all whizzing down the middle and advanced courses.
Flying down fast. That makes me want to ask a question of Adam on that. Hold on a second there, Nigel. Adam, what happens when hierarchies come out in your program? When you've got a type A leader and maybe some people that aren't in leadership that either are also type A or they're not, and you get when those hierarchies start to come out. It seems like your situation would create a different scenario for dealing with those. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, that's the idea. You're right. And there's never an easy solution to that. But, if we're talking pop culture and television and movies, we can point them to that series, Making or Breaking of the Band.
Yeah.
Think about how many bands jumped off to a meteoric rise
Yeah.
and were at the top of the charts, and then they just blew up. Now, that's a little bit tougher to compare, but a better analogy, frankly, is in a band, as the ultimate example of a team, everyone's got to be playing in sync, in tune together. A band does not survive, and there are dozens and hundreds of stories. A band does not survive with one rock star and 3 or 4 also rans.
Right.
So we try to remind them of that. And then similar to what Dave mentioned earlier, if we've got a ringer and he wants to be the ringer and he's sleeping on it and he's practiced the guitar for 30 years, but he won't admit it beforehand,
Yeah.
we or the instructors will pick up on that and we'll put that guy on a different seat.
Right.
Sure.
Because the philosophy is the experience needs to be shared and everyone needs to start on a level playing field. And that growth curve is what builds the empathy, frankly.
Right. And conversely, to the rock star side, what we had happen in our team was there were a few folks that were pretty reticent about doing anything. And so I think one of the unique sets of your program, Adam, is that you get coached. So if you know that you suck, at any instrument, you're paired up with a couple of people that just show you what to do to be minimally successful and to start actually making music. So where else are you going to have one-on-one coaching to get you good enough to actually participate with the rest of the group, especially if you're completely uncomfortable with what you're doing?
Adam, do you mix voice into it?
I'm sorry?
Do you mix singing into it as well? Or is it all instrumental?
We do, yes.
Oh boy.
We don't insist upon that, but often in a group, there's one who volunteers or wants to sing.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense.
And if there isn't, then actually the instructors fill in on that.
Yeah, I got a little secret, you guys. I'm thinking about taking voice lessons. In fact, Jason, the other part of Voyager, he took some, he said the best investment he made last year was hiring a professional voice coach. He wanted to learn, he wanted to learn and see what it was like. And, it obviously benefits speaking and all that. And he goes, freaking awesome, just awesome. And that's a dimension I think we're all sort of a little afraid to pursue.
And talk about a place to be out there. Yeah, I did 10, 15 years of voice lessons.
You did.
It kind of shows up, and that's one of the reasons I'm comfortable on stage. Because
you got a very deep voice. So many things, if you get done with one of your sessions, people got to be just charged up, not just as a team, but almost sort of in life, right? Like it just feels so awesome.
I think you're right, and it's neat to hear about voice lessons and Dave's background as a singer. I guess I'll point out there is a little bit of science to it, and very frankly, music. Yeah, I mentioned a little bit tritely, music makes us smile, but it absolutely, playing music reduces levels of the stress hormone cortisol. Oh, that's proven. So we automatically feel better. It also engages, I think it's called the auditory cortex, which is a part of the brain near our ears, which then engages the other parts of the brain, including the motor system. So frankly, your brain recognizes a tune before you think you do. I'm not explaining it properly, but your brain feels better. Your brain tunes into that rhythm before you're able to start tapping your toes to it. So
really,
it's something innate, and that's part of the science that makes you feel good. So
it makes sense though, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't it make sense? Like, when you think about rhythm and cadence, these just core things of music, and before there was an instrument, right? There was a rhythm to the day. There's a rhythm to the wind. There's a rhythm to the season. There's a rhythm to water dripping. You can almost imagine this is built deep in to our DNA.
Well, and you think back, how many of our human events, cultural events, are founded around or augmented with music? Religion, politics, which I don't even want to mention now, war,
right?
Weddings, of course, funerals. There's a musical foundation to a lot of those things.
And there's a thump. What's interesting is you know, that again, back to that rhythm. I've got 3 sons, and one's 2 years out of college, one is about to graduate, and the other is 14 years old. So, and we've only got the 14-year-old in the house yet. But boy, I tell you, just they're always playing their music, right? But that thump, you know, that rhythm, that and it just feels like, yeah, that's this window in time, but music is so deep in us, so deep in us. And I'm not knocking softball, but softball is not deep in us.
Softball's not, and you're right. You have the jock who wants to relive his high school glory days, and then you have the right field dandelion pickers, and that exists from the first time we start playing softball or baseball, all the way up, yes, to a company softball team.
Wow.
Where there's a few people that just have to be there but don't want to be.
So who are the organizations that are picking up your program? Is it, you know, are you getting from Fortune 5s all the way down to onesie Tuesdays, or how's that going?
No, that's a great question, John. We're still narrowing our primary or our best topic.
Okay.
It's envisioned at small to medium-sized businesses, and
Sure.
especially small to medium-sized businesses who are experiencing significant growth because they can't keep up. And then also that size organization might have an HR manager, but they don't have a robust HR staff to conduct team building or retention or engagement programs ongoing.
Sure.
Now, we're not envisioned to replace all of those. We're envisioned to be one component that can add to what a company is doing.
Oh, for sure. There's no silver bullet, but it's a strong component.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even at the minimum of, listen, of all the things you can do to pull this team together and get this band playing, right? Even at the minimum of that, you're going to start with humility.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get in sync. I mean, it's just, you know, who knows, just for the fact of how damn different it is, you know, how damn unique it is. And I feel like we're entering an age where we're like, we've had it enough of the stuff in the last 50 years. We're tired of it. You know, we need some new energy in how we do things.
Some new ways to play.
Yeah. Oh, was that a pun?
Nicely said.
Was that a pun?
I will back up and pun not intended, but I'll take the credit.
No, hey, you guys are pros. Way to throw that in there, Dave. That was
Nigel,
music to my ears.
love to hear more from you guys too.
Yes, I commandeered a lot there for a second, and we're not going to go off the air at the end like we usually do, because we found out last week, like, we stay on air and it works pretty good. So raise your hand if you want to poke at Adam and his leadership band.
Amazing. Yes.
Do people get to come up with their band names?
Absolutely.
Oh God.
Yes. No holds barred. Although I don't think the Busy Web
I don't
created
think we
an alter
did.
ego, or
Well,
did you after the fact?
We were all one team, right? So we were all one band, and we chatted about it. I think we were going to be the Buzz Band.
Sure.
I don't know if we didn't get embroidered shirts for ourselves or anything after that, for sure. But
Not yet, but maybe after session number 2.
all right, exactly. And we'll be doing
On
it.
that, you know, Dave, let me ask you, sort of what John touched on earlier. People come away energized, but I also think they come away a little bit exhausted. And you joked about the calluses on your fingers.
Mhm.
When you're digging into something in depth like that, can you touch better on what it felt like to walk out of the building and have that sense of accomplishment, but also were you a little bit weary?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic day for sure. We got going, we hammered out 2 songs. I think it's good that you do 2 songs, because I was getting real tired of the same chords at the end of the first song, and so we switched it up. But then after that second song, interestingly enough, you know, we did the leadership team with Intune team building, and then we went off with our entire team, with all 24 of us, and went to a game show night. And so we did like versions of Price is Right, and you know, a bunch of other TV game shows in person in Minneapolis. So it was a long day that ended out, I think we were done by 11:30 at the bar. So it was a big long day that went, you know, for me, it was like 16 hours worth of playtime. So I was definitely.
Wow. That's
I'm
so
tired
cool.
thinking about it.
Mhm.
That is so,
It was tremendous.
so cool.
So yeah, it takes it out. It takes it out of you. And I'd say we were all weary, but in a good way. Like you exercise muscles that you didn't know that you had.
Wow.
So,
And you know, that's a good parable, because frankly, listening to music as you listen to music critically,
mhm.
that's a way of thinking that we don't normally exercise,
Right.
especially in the workplace.
Mhm.
And the process of learning to play is just a different way to engage our brains.
Right.
And as we do that with our coworkers, that's really the gist of what we're aiming for.
So I was talking this week to a person who works at a state agency, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people, right? And as you would expect, they're having trouble figuring out what the return to office thing is. And like everybody's feeling like, I don't want to go back. I like the people, but that's about it. And what occurs to me is, well, I don't think we should go back. First of all, I think, you know, go where you're happy and comfortable and safe and healthy. But when you do reconvene, because you should reconvene, right? Like if you got hundreds of people, there's probably a situation, but what should it be in? I think it should be in a program like yours. Let's get back together. Let's get the band back together, right? Just for this, and then go back home. You've connected deeply with your members. You've experienced empathy. You didn't have to bring a Sharpie and a whiteboard and write down a bunch of stuff. And the CEO didn't have to sort of come down from on high with a bunch of uncomfortable stuff. I think this is great to get people back together, but not to like, because I want to see you. I don't want to get everybody back together so I can see your faces. I want the band to play together. I think it's genius.
What a great reminder and a great summary. Thank you, John. Yeah, we're not going to solve everything, but we hope to re-engage as humans and build that empathy. And boy, we've lost that. And beyond what we've lost, I think that's such a critical component of what we do day in or day out, or what we should be doing day in and day out. Yep, this technical revolution and work from home scenario is wonderful and we get a lot done, but it's been proven that people are a lot less happy because of it. Even
You
for
got to have some. You got to have moments.
Benefit for going to the office and interacting with people.
Well, I don't know. I might not go as far as say going to the office, but getting together. I could see doing your program, not at the office, but together with the team. You know.
No, I mean that we've lost.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Personal connection for sure.
Yep, for sure. Let's do some business because we're 1 minute away from from the top of the hour. But let's do some business. Adam, how can people find you? How can they get started? What tell us a little bit more so we can kind of get grounded on your thing. We're at
intuneteambuilding.com, and that's all one word. And our phone number is 763-432-1881.
Okay.
And I'm on LinkedIn as Adam Ehlert, Ehlert. Thank you, Dave. I see you putting it up there.
Yes.
I appreciate the opportunity. You guys conduct a terrific and fun forum here, and I really enjoy what you're doing.
Well, I can't wait to share it with the world because anything that brings empathy and humility together is a win.
Yes.
Is a win.
And if before we stop the recording, and for everybody that's on, feel free to hang on, and we're going to not record the last part so we can just kind of chat. But if you're watching the recording next week on April 1st, we're going to have Ben Wolf talking about how to succeed as a fractional leader. So Ben Wolf is fantastic. I've chatted with Ben before, and he's got a ton to say, and we're really looking forward to that. So thanks everybody for joining. I'm going to stop recording, but we're going to keep chatting, and we'll see you next time at office hours. Thanks everybody.
Dave, take him through. I've got to jump to another